Hey guys, and welcome to GP Fans on YouTube. My name is Luther. I'm your host, and I'm joined once again by Nicholas to discuss some halfway point awards. Remember, I've given you mine. I do have some amendments to make, and we'll get to those later. But Nicholas, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Yeah, I'm curious to see how many amendments you've made at 2 races after your initial awards.
Yeah, if you know me, you know that I am very fickle and very easily things can change my opinions very quickly. And I've seen 2 races, and let's just say, I think one driver stood out ahead of the others that I may have spoken about when talking about some of the awards. So we're going to get to those later. So what we're going to discuss is driver of the year so far, who's been the biggest surprise, who's been the biggest underachiever, and what our favorite moment of this season is. So let's get started with the driver of the year, Nicholas. Who do you think are the 21 drivers we've seen in Formula One? I assume 2 of those 21 drivers are not up for driver of the year, but who has been the driver that stood out to you?
Yeah, there's a lot of candidates. I mean, I think you have to start with the championship leader right now, Oscar Piastri. A lot of people, saw Norris comfortably beat him last season. I think that's easy to forget. Some people thought that Piastri would beat Norris this season. Not to pat myself on the back here.
Some people.
Some people. But yeah, I mean, Oscar Piastri, you have to put him in there. I think he's had a very complete season with some things that haven't gone his way, but a lot of those were completely out of his control. You have to mention, I think, recently Gabriel Bortoleto, but I think when you look at the season as a whole, that would be a bit too much of recency bias. I think Pierre Gasly's done a heck of a job in that Alpine, given how chaotic that car is on track and how chaotic that team is off the track. But for me, I actually might have to give it, and I say this as someone who has always thought this man is very overrated, but I think Alex Albon has had such a good season so far. Honestly, mightily impressive. I was one of the people who thought Sainz is going to get in there. He's going to wipe the floor with Albon. Albon, who's not had the best teammates, is finally going to have a proper one, and he'll get, throttled a little bit. But it's been the other way around. Sainz has struggled. Williams have struggled of late, but Albon has been so impressive. He's carrying the team in terms of points. He's sitting in a lonely 8th, I think it is, in the standings. Yeah, honestly, hugely impressive season from Alex Albon, and he deserves a shout out. So if I have to pick someone, it'd be between Piastri, Verstappen, and Albon, and I'd give it to Alex Albon.
I didn't even think about Albon, but he's had a great season. Before the start of the season, we actually spoke, me and you, about Sainz, and I completely agreed with you. I thought that Sainz would, convince it. I thought he would beat him, and I thought it wouldn't be a problem for Sainz. But whenever the Williams has had pace, it's been Albon that's been the one to extract it on the Sundays, not Sainz. And I know people talk about Sainz adjusting to a new team, etc., but he's not someone that's not new to adjusting to new teams. He's driven for several teams in his time of Formula One anyway. So I've been so impressed with Albon. Whenever Williams look like they could be ahead of a Ferrari, there's a Ferrari that's struggling to get ahead of a Williams. Who's in front of him? It's Alex Albon. Spa. You look at Imola battling with Leclerc and Hamilton, and other places this season. Miami, yeah. So he has been absolutely fantastic. I think in terms of mine, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I did give 3 of them because I couldn't think of one. I mentioned Pierre Gasly because I think he has been absolutely incredible. I think he's scored 100% of Alpine's points. He is in the points way too often for the car that is definitely the slowest car on the grid, and his teammates can't seem to put the car anywhere near him on Saturdays, and on Sundays the gap just becomes bigger. I think Oscar Piastri has been just there constantly, just there. He looks like he's on his way to a title. I know it's close, but there are circumstances that have helped it be close. But in terms of his performance, he's almost been as close to flawless as you can get. And Max Verstappen his teammate has 10 points. He has 180. I think that's all you need to say in terms of that. He's been absolutely brilliant. Some of the moments that he's put out this season, and we'll get to moments of this season later, but some of the things that he's done have literally had my eyes water because I've been so baffled by how he's been able to do certain things this season. But for me, and he was one of the people that I did mention last time I spoke about it, I'm going to have to give it to George Russell. And similar to what you said about Alex Albon, I was the same with George Russell. I still have my doubts about him when he's driving next to someone. I'm scared he's going to crash into them. I don't trust him as a side-by-side racer. But in terms of whenever the Mercedes, if you are curious about what the maximum the Mercedes could get at a specific weekend, just look at where George Russell finishes. Because I guarantee you this season, every single year, every single race, bar Silverstone, because Silverstone, he inarguably had a bad weekend, but there was also some bad luck to it with the strategy decisions. He has put that car where it could be. You look at Austria, the maximum that car could get in that temperature, with that track surface and that circuit, the maximum it could get was fifth. A fifth that was a minute away from the leaders, but fifth. And he put it there. While his teammate has scored 1 point since Canada, George Russell is constantly in the points, constantly nearly there. He's got the most podiums by a driver that's not driving for the McLarens. He's obviously got a win as well. Obviously not as many wins as Max Verstappen, but he's got a win as well. And I just think George Russell, to me, it's been a great season for him in a season where his contract has been up. There's been a lot of discussion around his future. Obviously, we've spoken about it and we never really expected anything to come of it anyway. But I think he's handled the situation and handled his performances surrounding the situation so well. And for me, he's been the one that shone this season.
No, absolutely. No, he was absolutely up for consideration for me as well. So fair. He's been stellar this season. He needs to be the lead Mercedes driver now, and he's done exactly that. He's had a pretty much perfect season. So absolutely fair shout.
Yeah, I think that was the key thing, because it was like Lewis Hamilton's leaving. Is he going to be able to step up into that role? And he has, especially with like a younger teammate struggling next to him. Mercedes do need that lead driver, the mature driver, and his performances on track have been very mature. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I agree 100%.
So then we go on to the biggest surprise. Now this can be anything. I've gone for a team specific thing, but what is your biggest surprise of the season so far?
I mean, the biggest surprise of the season is, I think, how bad Ferrari have been. At the end of last season, it was the first time since 2012 that they came into the last race of the season still within contention for either championship. They were actually quite close to winning the constructors title last season, and a lot of people thought they would build on this. Now they get Hamilton, they get the missing piece, and they can finish the job. Maybe get a title. I think both me and you had Leclerc as the winner, as the title winner at the start of the season, and he has picked up 5 podiums, I say off the top of my head, but overall Ferrari have just been a complete disaster. And I think in terms of underachievers, Ferrari and Alpine are the two standouts, aren't they? We all thought the midfield battle was going to be between Williams and Alpine. They would be like in this sort of midfield battle in a bit of a league of their own. And then there would be the bottom teams behind them fighting for 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And then it would be between Ferrari and McLaren at the top. And it's been nothing like that. To be fair, Ferrari are still second in the constructors, but nowhere near, not even in the same stratosphere as McLaren. So for me, it has to go to Ferrari. I think it's the correct answer almost.
Yeah, I think the worst part of Ferrari's season is that it stems from an issue that showed itself in the second race of the season, and 12 races later, Ferrari have brought upgrades and they are still unable to run their car at a normal ride height without fear of being disqualified. I think they've not been able to find a fix for this issue that's caused their season to be so poor. You know, every time their car seems to be competitive, they're at risk of being disqualified. You look at Hungary, you look at Lewis winning the sprint race in China, and then obviously getting disqualified from the actual Grand Prix. It's been poor from Ferrari, especially with the hype that they had going into this season. I remember at the start of the season, Formula One did that thing where like everybody held those like directors boards, and they had like, no, it was like a chalkboard, and it had like questions like their names, this, that, the other, and it was like, this year I will be was one of the questions, and loads of people just put like different things like happy, this, that, the other. Charles Leclerc put world champion. And they didn't hide from the pressure. They did not run away from the pressure. So they expected better from themselves again. So yeah, I can't disagree with you that one of the biggest surprises is Ferrari's disappointing season, because I expected better. I'm sure they expected better. We're 14 races in, and we'll get into this, and Lewis Hamilton hasn't even been on a podium yet. But for me, I went for my biggest surprise of the season so far and it kind of plays into the weakness of Red Bull, but the strength of RB. You look at Liam Lawson has 20 points, Hadjar has 22 points, and that goes against Yuki Tsunoda, who is 18th in the standings with just 10 points behind Bortoleto, behind Hulkenberg, behind so many people. I think the only two people behind him are the three people behind him: Ollie Behrman, Colapinto, and Doohan, who obviously hasn't raced in nearly 10 races. So I think for me, the strength of RB, and there's been multiple races where they're the faster of the Red Bull cars. Hadjar had a period of time where he's had races where he's the leading point scorer across the 4 Red Bull cars.
Yeah.
I think that is been absolutely shocking, and it makes and just seeing how Yuki looked like through 2 races, like he could be on course to have his best season in Formula One. I know he hadn't scored points, but that was due to unfortunate circumstances. You know, his front wing destroying the Australia, his what's it called? The strategy. Well. Yeah. I think before those 2 races, he looked fantastic, and then he goes to a Red Bull and it looks horrible. So yeah, I think RB somehow they've made a very good car, and it was surprising.
It was definitely surprising, and I think particularly Isaac Hadjar as well. How well he settled in F1 is one of the big surprises as well, especially after what happened in Australia, when that was a proper welcome to F1 moment. Spinning on the formation lap, letting out a few tears, having Helmut Marko basically telling you to man up in public, getting Anthony Hamilton to hug you. Like, it didn't reflect great on him, as bad as we all felt for him. It's also, it is a very hard sport. It's not a sport where you get a lot of sympathy, as Marko well showed. But he is, and I thought at the time, like, oof, this could be a tough season for him if this is how it's starting. But fair play, man. He's been, if you're building like a starter team from scratch, like, he'd be probably one of the first names you'd pick right now. He's been absolutely on it. No notes on young Isaac.
Yeah, value for age right now, Isaac Hadjar's got to be one of the top picks in Formula One right now. I think that Australia crash is one of those moments where you'd see it in like a YouTube video or documentary further on, where it was like, this is where it went wrong. He was expected to be this like promising young driver, and then in his first race he crashed he didn't even make it to the start of the Grand Prix. And from that point onwards, he was destroyed. But he hasn't been. And that's why, once again, you have to give him credit, because like you said, Formula One's a very rough, ruthless sport. And clearly he's got the strength to fight through those hard things, because that was tough. That was very tough. It was as public an embarrassment as you could get, especially with Helmut Marko as well. For me, the biggest underachievers, I think you hinted at one, and I've gone for like a slash of one, because I think one of mine is Lewis Hamilton, which links into your Ferrari thing. I think there's an element of, I think Hamilton I expected more. I expected more. I didn't expect him to. I expected Leclerc to beat him, and I didn't think it would be close. And when you're battling for thirds, fourths, fifths, a 30-point gap is a lot bigger than what you may think. You know what I mean? Because the points that are being given up for those positions aren't as much. So when he's 30 points behind Leclerc and these two aren't battling for wins, it's a bit concerning. I think through 14 races, you would have expected Hamilton to be on the podium at least once by now. I think that's the biggest shame. And we are talking about adjustment periods. But I think when Hamilton has been at his best for Ferrari, Imola, with all due respect, I'm not trying to discredit him, but safety cars were the reason he was ahead of Leclerc, ahead of the other drivers. Leclerc was it where Albon even was there to be able to battle with them. He would have been behind them, and he would have finished further behind if it wasn't for Antonelli's safety car and then the safety car later on in the track that messed up the people that stopped early and had undercut them all. And then you look at Silverstone, which was an absolutely fantastic race. But every time there have been moments where it's looked like, oh, Lewis, hi, you are here. We are quickly reminded the next race that no, he's still not there struggling. And then you get more often than not weekends like Hungary than weekends like Silverstone. The weekends like Silverstone are here and there, but more often than not, similar to last season, we're seeing Hamilton in the driver pen saying he's not good and he's not good enough. And that's why I think this season, all the hype was surrounding Hamilton. People almost forgot how good Leclerc's season was last year. I didn't, but people forgot how good Leclerc's season was last year. I think it was his best season of Formula One. Because people were talking about Hamilton joining his team and Hamilton instantly having an impact, but he's not had that impact yet. And I think it's been a shame.
It has been. And the funny thing is that Hamilton's best weekends individually have tended to come when at tracks where Ferrari have performed worse. So it doesn't really stand out as much. Yeah, and like it has been covered for a couple of years now, Hamilton doesn't like the current cars. He doesn't like the ground effect cars. It doesn't suit his style of absolutely throwing cars into corners, and just kind of relying on the downforce to be there, like was the case with the last generation of cars, for example. But no, absolutely, Hamilton's not been good enough. At this point now, Fred Vasseur has admitted as well that both he and Hamilton himself have underestimated how big of a challenge it would be for him to adapt, because obviously, you know, Hamilton has been with McLaren since he was 12 or something, and he has been driving with Mercedes engines and working with Mercedes and all that time since then. This is the first time he's not lived in the UK. This is the first time he's not driven Mercedes powered cars, and that does really impact things. It's a completely new environment for him. And yeah, for them to now admit that they've underestimated it, I guess the first step of recovering is admitting that you have a problem, basically. But yeah, it's an expensive one, isn't it? It's an expensive admission to make.
Yeah. And I think that's... I'm not sure. I expect Hamilton to get a podium at some point this season. I think he's too good. And I think at some point Ferrari's going to have a car that will be all right enough for him to get a podium. Well, Leclerc said their one chance at winning a race is gone, and that was Hungary. That I may agree with that, even though I did predict that Leclerc would win a race by the end of the season. I think there will be a point where Hamilton will get a chance at a podium. And there's something about Lewis when he's given the opportunity to maybe steal something like that. Like you look back at Las Vegas when he thought he could have won the race last season. You look back at Silverstone last season where he actually won the race, or Belgium last season. It almost seems to flip a switch and he just manages to like just become so much quicker. So I do think that if he does have a point where there is a podium in his sights, he will be able to snatch it this season. One more I had was Antonelli, which is unfortunate because I don't think it's as big a thing because he's younger, but since his first podium in Formula One, he scored a singular point. He went on a very, very bad run of pointless scorings, and I think some of it wasn't his fault. Some of it was just him being slower while George was running it quite high up the standings. He had a very good start in Formula One, and I think we were all quite excited by it because Antonelli's rapid. He's a very quick driver. You know, you look at the sprint pole in Miami, stuff like that is just exciting, and I do expect him to bounce back. But I thought before the season, the expectations on him were a bit too high. I think people talked about what they expected of him, and I think it was a bit too high, and that's why I think I predicted him to be, which sounds mean, but I predicted him to be the biggest disappointment, but not because I didn't think he was going to be bad, but because I thought the expectations of an 18 or a 17-year-old when he started F1 were too high, and I think it's been like you're now seeing that come to life where he's just having a rookie slump, which is expected. But when you're constantly being talked about as like F1's new generational prospect, a Verstappen-esque prospect, you know, I think this season's been a bit. Yeah,
I mean, it's normal for a teenager to have amazing weekends, have flashes of insane pace, but also to go through the trials and tribulations of an F1 season and have a dip like he is having now. We even, you know, after being eliminated in Q1, I think it was in Belgium, he was even a little bit emotional. He's clearly having a tough time of it now, but we've also already seen some amazing drives from him this season. That podium in Canada, in Australia, despite having a spin, finishing P4, I think it was, or P5. The pace and the talent is clearly there, but it is a hugely inexperienced driver. It's someone who skipped F3 to drive an F2. Just like, you know, I think that's also where the Verstappen comparisons came in, because obviously Verstappen skipped F2 and he did one season of single-seater racing before going into F1. So there was 1 year between karts and F1 for Verstappen in F3. And Antonelli, it wasn't that quick, but it was similar. And I think that combined with, you know, some of the highlights was why those comparisons were drawn. But still, there is, you know, Mercedes have made a big bet on him. And so far, I think it's probably going like they were expecting it to go. I don't think Mercedes themselves were hoping on too much. They said ahead of the season, we're expecting him to be beaten by George. We're expecting George to be our lead driver, but to have weekends where, you know, Antonelli is suddenly our best driver, and for him to show us enough, basically, because he only signed a 1-year deal. Remember, he's on an expiring deal, which we're expecting him to extend by a single season. So again, he still is a little bit. He still has to prove himself, but at the same time, Mercedes, I think, do trust him to get better, but still they're kind of covering their bases with that.
I think the easiest way to explain just how quickly Antonelli was fast-tracked to Formula One, his F4 teammate and teammate through a couple of other single-seater specs was Rafa Camara, who's just won Formula 3.
Yeah.
And he's just become champion of Formula 3 in his rookie season. Yeah. And Kimi Antonelli is in Formula 1. That's how quickly they've taken him through and jumped so many things to get him through. And I mean, Ferrari obviously handling Rafa Camara very differently to how Mercedes have handled Kimi Antonelli. Lately, it's fair to say that Mercedes have had the better luck with the junior drivers. They've had a lot more success with their junior drivers. You look at Bottas, you look at Russell, you look at Antonelli, Hamilton, Ferrari. Who have they had recently? Leclerc, Sergio Perez,
Behrman,
Joe,
Joe Venazzi. You know, not.
Oh yeah, Antonio Joe. Yeah, it's not the same kind of caliber, is it? With all due respect. Now let's go onto our final one, moment of the season. What's been the moment for you that has stood out?
The moment for me that maybe stood out most was Verstappen getting pole in Japan. Was definitely a moment where I thought, wow, you know, he is he's still I think he's a driver that we're kind of taking for granted now a little bit. It's kind of like, same as everything, same as, Messi and Ronaldo in their prime, same as LeBron James in his prime. You're just kind of, you don't really look up at how unbelievable this guy is week in, week out. And when he whacked it on pole at Suzuka, when Red Bull were clearly not supposed to be there, that was one of those. And you see that lap where he is just hustling that car around every corner, so on the limit at one of the most punishing tracks on the calendar. That was one of those moments where I thought, wow, like nobody else can do that. And that's why you pay him what you pay him. That's why you let him do all the things he does. He is just, I think it's no debate, and there's no driver that's close to him one-on-one on being the best driver in Formula One. And that was the moment where it was more prevalent than ever, that Verstappen could put it on pole at Suzuka, which is a proper driver's track as well. That was it for me.
See, this is exactly why I said Max has had moments this season that have been absolutely spectacular, and I'm sure we'll get onto them, because I've literally written down on my notes Max pole lap at Japan, a very, very close second. That's why when you said Max pole lap, I was like, because my moment was his pole lap at Silverstone. Because I think that one there, the reason why I think that one was so special was they were nowhere. Like, even he was nowhere the entire weekend. He looked slow in practice. I was there on the Friday practice live. He looked slow in practice. He wasn't there in FP3, and then it comes to qualifying. He's not exactly battling the McLarens for any of the top spots during the first two parts of qualifying. The Ferraris have dropped off in pace. We're thinking that it's literally a battle between Ferrari and McLaren. No one's thinking about Red Bull. And then out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere, Max Verstappen hits on pole and puts it on pole. And I think that one, my eyes actually watered. I was like, what the hell am I seeing? And I just messaged my friend's group chat. I've never seen anybody like him.
Yeah.
I did not understand how he did that. And the Japan one was similar. I remember, because it's obviously an early morning qualifying. I woke up my girlfriend because I screamed when Max Verstappen put it on pole in Japan. Because I was so shocked by that one. But for me, the Silverstone one, I think with Japan, there's part of me that Max has been so dominant there that I was like, I don't care if Red Bull aren't good. I know that guy. The only person that's been that good around that circuit is Schumacher. Like, he and Schumacher actually just own that track. So part of me was like, I'm not going to count him out. But in Silverstone, that weekend, he just didn't look good. And then all of a sudden, he just put it on pole with an absolutely fantastic lap, one of the best circuits on the track, on the calendar. And I think for me, he was brilliant that week, that session.
He is one of the only drivers, in a generation who genuinely does things where you're like, how did he do that? Like, you cannot do, nobody else can do that. And we're not telling anyone anything new when we're saying that Verstappen is just,
Verstappen is great.
He is. We will look back on him. I think once it's all said and done, I think we will look back on him as one of the best, if not the best drivers of all time. Genuinely, no matter how many world titles he will end up with.
Yeah, I think ability-wise, I have him very high. I already have him insanely high. That people might actually be shocked at how high I have him. But I think. The best way to sum it up is when Leclerc put his car on pole in Hungary and the two McLaren drivers were unable to beat it. The camera then turned to Verstappen. I was celebrating, and then I was like, wait. He exists. No. and then I just instantly dropped to the floor, and I was like, watching that, because even though, once again, they were so off it that weekend, I couldn't rest until I saw Verstappen cross the line.
You can never count him out, can you? You can never count him out. You can never count him out. No, he's
yeah, he's fantastic. But okay, that's been our halfway point summer break review. We'll be back again soon to discuss more Formula One. But thank you guys for watching. Let us know who you think the driver of the year so far has been. Who's been your biggest surprise? Who's been your biggest underachiever? And what have been your moment of the season? Put those in the comments below. And check out some of Nicholas's news videos that come up on our channel. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you get notified whenever we release a video. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's all mine.
Peace.